Adam Salkin from Diversified, and he's going to be talking about a really interesting mobile video processing system that they put together for the 2022 World Cup. So very much looking forward to it. Take it away, Adam.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everybody. So I'm going to be talking about the Fox Sports dual events system that was flown to Doha, Qatar, and subsequently flown back to do the Super Bowl, and is now going to be on its way to Australia. This presentation is a very engineering-centric presentation. A lot of presentations about how easy everything was, and I don't think we learn in there. This is going to be about essentially the difficulties and how we actually solved them. So let me just start the slide. Okay. So what we were asked to build for Fox Sports was two separate systems, one for the IBC, International Broadcast Center, and another for their studio. Out in Doha, everything 50 frames a second, mix of SDR and HDR, and 50 and 5994. And then there are multiple stadiums, feed coming in as well. This map sort of like shows where things, where we had to fly things. We started off in Burbank, California, in Diversified's warehouse, where we built and tested things. We then flew it to Charlotte, North Carolina, where Fox Sports has a facility. And we could have stayed in Burbank and carried on the testing. But that flight to Charlotte was a very useful test of, like, what does it take to pack this thing up and actually put it on a plane and fly it and unpack it. It then went from there, went to Qatar, did the FIFA World Cup, flew back to Phoenix, Arizona, and is now on its way to Australia. So that was that's the general plan of where things had to go. This was the very first event, the FIFA 2022 in Doha, Qatar. The fact it was in Doha, Qatar was important to all the plans. Normally, FIFA happens in the summertime. Because the summertime is unbearably hot in Qatar, everything got shifted, and actually the last final was on December the 18th, which meant everything had to be packed up very quickly, got back in time for Super Bowl in February. And that definitely had a big impact on our plans. This shows one of the sets of systems that we put together. This happens to be the IBC system, the studio system, similar design, just slightly different equipment, obviously. And it's 20 racks. We can see along here we've got 5 racks. I'm going to have a pointer. No, okay. We've got 5 racks, then another 5 racks, and then behind there's another 5 and 5. Each of these pallets is designed to be completely redundant. So you can probably see at the front, you can see equipment which is very similar in pallet 1 and pallet 2. The system was designed such that we could have lost any one pallet from IBC or any one pallet from studio, and we would still have a 100% functional system. We would have lost some capacity, but the system would still have functioned. And that was a very important part of the design. We're concerned with these dropping off a forklift, and in fact when we shipped things, we shipped everything such that odd numbered pallets for IBC and studio went on one plane and even went on another plane. Worst case, we could have had a plane crash, we would still have had a functioning system. Obviously, we looked at the various options about how we're going to get there. I touched on one of the reasons for the shipping simply just because of the speed from end of FIFA to the start of Super Bowl. The other thing was we started this in the beginning, around about in the middle of COVID. And this was the picture at a lot of ports around the world. And we had visions of our equipment being on a ship and just not being able to get to it. It would be like sitting outside the port of Doha and would have to send the Somali pirates in to get our equipment. So that really was not an option. Option, air cargo. However, there are some limitations with when you're flying in air cargo. You can only be round about 5 feet high. You know, there's very specific volume sizes needed for flying. A lot of the equipment is 30 inches deep or more. So if we'd gone with like fly pack cases, they probably would have been custom cases to handle that. If we'd done loads and loads of road cases, then we would have had, you know, just a gazillion fiber interconnections. Didn't really like that idea either. Also takes up a lot of floor space because, you know, you can only make a floor case so high. And that was an issue because places like, you know, IBC in Doha, Fox Sports is paying for square foot per day. Fox Sports already had the biggest amount of space at the IBC, and they didn't want to make it even larger. So we ended up with these racks on a platform. And we decided to go with racks which you could actually fold in two. By putting everything on a platform, you could have 5 full racks. You could run all the cables underneath the racks, really reducing all of the interconnections. In fact, the number of interconnections between the pallets was very limited. We had, you know, obviously a number of MPO cables, doing MPO 12 cables connecting them, but we didn't have to do thousands of fiber connections. So this happens, this just shows a number of the pallets already folded up, crated, ready to fly out. This happens to be in our Burbank facility, and we were crating them up, ready to go to Charlotte. Oh, let me go. Okay, here's this slide here. If I can see how to play it on here, that would be good. How can I get the video to play? I'm so sorry. How do I get the video to play on here? I've got my slide up, but I don't see anywhere to play the video. Don't see anywhere on here. Oh, do we have to show the taskbar? No, never mind, sorry. Sorry, minor technical PowerPoint issue. Yeah. Hey. Okay.
So let me do this.
Yeah. Maybe we can just I think just hit slideshow, you know, and I think we get a different, yeah. If we do not the setup, I think yeah. If we let's just go hit cancel that. Let's hit cancel that and hit from current slide. We're gonna get a, and we still get. Oh, okay.
You know what the problem is?
Yeah.
Here, hold that.
Oh, is my clicker was wrong?
It's just it's too far out of the way. See, it's way down here at the bottom.
Oh, okay.
All right, it's there, but you gotta.
I've got to find. Okay.
All right.
All right. Okay. Apologies for the PowerPoint issue. Okay, I think we've got it. Okay, here we go. So this is a video of the company Lowell trying out the folding rack for the first time. If there was audio, you'd hear a lady in the background saying, "Oh, that looks easy," which it is when it's an empty rack. So you'll see that there's obviously a hinge at the back. You'll also see some threads right here where we basically had a locking plate to make sure that everything stayed where it's supposed to be. Okay, and then this picture here shows various views of us trying things out for the first time. I want to call out Douglas McGee, right there. Great engineer. He was one of the main proponents of this particular system. Other thing I wanted to mention is the what might seem a rather strange arrangement of the umbilical cords going from top rack to the bottom, and they on the outside. Reason is that by the time when you fold them down, they're now on the inside. So looks, maybe a little bit, like not as neat and clean as we really like, but obviously much better than having that umbilical on the top where it could potentially be damaged. Obviously, this was part way through construction with all the temp ties. And then this, hopefully if I can get this one, here we are. All right, so this is what is actually happening when you have a fully loaded rack. We did think about, okay, well, let's just offload all the equipment, put it in boxes, and then we're only moving empty racks around. And in fact, a lot of the design was based on thinking about, okay, what gear can go up in the upper rack that doesn't have many connections on it? Maybe it's got some power cords and one or two Ethernet cables. But when we actually came to do it, we thought, okay, the amount of time to take everything, box it, stack all the boxes, way too long. We ended up with a winch system, and so let me just play it, and you'll see what happens. And so we have a cable there, which is both helping pull it, but also it is a safety cable as well. Not sure why it just stopped. All right, let's we'll go on to the next slide. Yes, I did. It stopped for some reason. I am having troubles with this mouse. I'm hitting it. I mean,
All right. We might have exceeded capabilities of this guy. Okay. Start from here.
Sure. Yes, right. Okay. Okay, so the winch system, which we see right here, that was originally prototyped by one of Diversified's install supervisor, and it was then developed the process of doing the test in Burbank and Charlotte, and final design that was actually built by David Carroll Associates. Number of nice touches. We had a winch for assistance. You'll see here this half moon, or actually three-quarter moon, is actually a magnetic device that we could drop in place and would stop the cable rubbing against the front of the equipment as it came over the top. Okay, and here it is going down. Going down takes less people than going back up. What I'm showing here is the isolators that were used. So at the bottom, shown in green, is the approved airline pallet. When you're flying cargo, you can't just ship it. It's got to go on a pallet provided by the airline. It has an L groove all around it, which we then bolted the isolators into. And you can see, I think, zoomed in on red, is basically wire type isolators. And the isolators were fixed into our pallet, which then we locked down onto the L track. Here it is, or two of them showing up in downtown Doha. This is the area they call the Corniche. This was where the studio was happening. Here's one, the first IBC crate brought into the empty room. So you see here that we've removed the isolators and put them on wheels. So outside of the room, when it was still on the forklift, we unbolted the isolator assemblies and slid in wheels. And those wheels are on plates that were the same size as the isolators. So unbolt the isolators, slide in the wheels. You'll see here we have jack screws. So you'd wheel it into place and then turn the jack screws down, lift the wheels off the ground to get everything stationary. This photo happens to be from our Charlotte, North Carolina test, but it kind of shows the general arrangement, where you can see, we've got one set of pallets here for IBC. Behind it is for the studio. And these are the 4 pallets ready to be raised up. So this is a time lapse from Doha. You can see we've already got pallet 1 up, and really from bringing it in on the truck to having everything stood up and wired was round about 4.5 hours. And there they are putting the locking plates in and now connecting up the MPO cables to loop the pallets together. And now it's on its way to Australia. That ends my presentation. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions? Yeah. Hold on. Oh.
For customs in and out, did you already have prearranged? I know that's not a technical question. I was just curious how you know it's going to make it to Australia in time.
Yeah, so that is really handled by the Fox Sports logistics team. We didn't really have to be involved in that. Our main job was to make sure that all the cargo was completely acceptable to the airline, which we ended up learning a lot about airline cargo and what needs to be done to make it completely acceptable to them.
Have to pull the batteries from the APCs to ship it?
We didn't have any dedicated APCs because there was a large building APC on site. Yeah.
What compression did you use for this event?
So that was JPEG XS. So within each system, it was all completely uncompressed 2110. There's another presentation on Wednesday going into a little bit more detail. It's a joint presentation with Fox Sports, EVS, and TARG multi-viewers. But the general technical details is that EVS neurons for the compression and all the processing and the routing, their Cerebrum orchestration system. Then that was built on top of an Arista 7508 switches, red and blue switches for that. I'd mentioned one of the things that you might have seen some of the slides was that all the fiber is OM4 multi-mode. The main reason we did that was, as I say, we were doing this in the middle of all the COVID production delays. It was therefore made sense to us to use the same SFPs that Fox Sports Enterprise IT already had. We could share parts back and forth if needed. However, if I was to build this again, I would say just do single mode end to end, because you know there's going to be places where you need some piece of equipment which is further out than OM4 can go, and now you're swapping out SFPs. So if I had a chance to do it again, I would do single mode. Probably the biggest issue we had in the whole build was production delays. In fact, at one point in Burbank, we were waiting for our master sync generator and PTP clock. And we're talking to our vendor, where is it, where is it? We've got it, we've built it, it's QC'd, it's locked up inside a factory in Shanghai. We literally cannot get into the factory. So that was probably the biggest issues